The draft is come and gone for the Atlanta Falcons. Will there be a pass rush? Finally, we're going to find out this coming season. And with our next guest, we're going to talk all about it. Come on back. What's up? Welcome to Chatt It Up Sports. I am Greg Larner. To my that way is Mr. Malcolm Harris in the new digs out in Knoxville, Tennessee. Kind of close to Knoxville.
Kind of.
We're just it's Knoxville.
Yeah, for sure. What's up, fellas? It's good to be back, man. All moved in, all ready to go, a little less tired, and I'm ready to chat it up, bro.
As we are. I know you're, this is your squad we're going to be talking about. So I figured if anybody was going to be ready for this episode, it was going to be you. And below us, pushing all the buttons and make sure we look and sound good, Mr. Joseph Guthrie. He will chime in every once in a while on the Falcons here on this conversation. But Miggy, they get a little pass rush potentially going on.
It ain't little, man. It's
a little bit.
It ain't little. I mean, do you really want me to just dive into this? I mean, I know we got plenty of time, but I could not be more excited about what Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons organization accomplished with the NFL draft.
A+ in your book.
A+. Could not have done much better. And I'm even more excited about the undrafted free agent class that the Atlanta Falcons signed. There are some legit, at least two players I know are going to make this team out of those undrafted free agents. Atlanta got better, for sure. For sure.
Follow us all over social media at Chatt It Up Sports. Get us wherever you get your podcasts as well, at Chatt It Up Sports on YouTube. All the good things. Make sure you follow us, subscribe, like, tell a friend, all the good stuff. Now joining us to talk more about the Falcons, get a little bit more in depth, and I'm sure him and Miggy will go at it and kind of nerd out when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. He is an old friend of the OG show, The Word with G. He had come on with me many a times to talk Atlanta Falcons, most notably when Will McFadden couldn't, or he was away or doing dad duties or whatnot. But he is a man who is consistently getting drunk on the Atlanta Falcons. He is a Falcons reporter for the Falcoholic. He's also the host and the producer for Falcoholic Live on the Believe Network. Put your hands together for Mr. Kevin Knights.
Hey guys.
What up, Kev? Good to have you back.
Good to be back. Good to be back. I was eagerly awaiting the call here on Chatt It Up Sports with you guys. Excited to get in here and hopefully we won't have most of my appearances the last couple of days have unfortunately been talking about prank calls when it should be about this draft class, because like you said, this is a great draft class. It's getting overshadowed by a bunch of tomfoolery. I couldn't be more excited to talk about this class, which pass rush finally. It's what we've been asking for.
That's right. And I'm going to let Miggy dive in, and I will just say this real quick. We will save the prank call tomfoolery by Jeff Ulbricht's kid to the very end. I do want to talk about it, but I will save it to the end. Miggy, go ahead, nerd out, dive in.
Yeah, man. So let's just start number 15 overall. I thought there was going to be potentially a trade back scenario, right? I thought that, hey, Jalen Walker's not going to be available at 15. I thought that potentially he would go to Carolina. I potentially thought Chicago could add him with his skill set, but he fell. And in that red suit, when I saw he was in it, I was like, oh, there's a chance he might be a Falcon. And guys, sure enough, when that name was called, I was ecstatic. Joseph, we talked about it, but that Texas game, Quinn Ewers, as well as Arch Manning, absolutely got the game wrecked because of Jalen Walker and the rest of that Georgia defense, but he pioneered that effort, man. When I tell y'all this guy plays fast, physical, upbeat, it was awesome. And we were at Tailgate, shout out to Tailgate for the Titans watch party. And things were kind of cut short. So you know what? We said, let's have a good night. We'll see y'all, man. Great job. And then I get a buzz on my phone. The Atlanta Falcons have traded back up. And Kev, I want you to jump in here too, but this was truly Terry Fontenot saying, listen, I don't think we're going to have a top 10 pick. I don't think we're going to have a top 20 pick. And there is not an edge rusher next year that is going to match James Pierce Jr. So a little double dip with your chips. My man Terry Fontenot put it all on the table and got James Pierce, who was arguably a top 5 talent in this year's draft, falling all the way in the mid-20s. Cinema, fellas. Cinema.
Yeah, like I mean, Jalen Walker, obviously, you said it. I think all the buzz was on Carolina at 8. That's pretty much what I had been hearing all week. They seem to have disguised their intentions to draft Tet McMillan pretty well. So congrats to them. I don't know. Everyone calls me like the Jalen Walker hater because I had him as like a late first on my board. Not that I didn't like Jalen Walker, just that type of profile where you're looking at him as like Hassan Reddick plus, right? Like that's what the potential is. And I see the potential for me with the top, where he was getting like top 5. DJ had him, I think 6 or 7 on his board, right? Dale Jeremiah. So, I was like, I don't know if I can get with that, but like at 15, it's hard to argue with the pick. You can see the potential to be a truly special player because I think Walker can play off ball eventually, whereas I think Hassan Reddick was really just a designated pass rusher and arguably the best designated pass rusher in the NFL. I think Jalen Walker does offer true off-ball versatility eventually. But I think the Falcons were smart to say, we're going to let him play edge to start. He's going to be one of our pass rush specialists and help out there because they need that. And maybe they can sort of work with him and develop out that linebacker role so he can stay on the field all 3 downs. Because that's really the only knock on Walker, right? 32-inch arms, 6'1". That's not typical NFL edge rush size, but they're going to find a way to get him on the field. I'm really excited about that. And James Pierce is a guy I was in on from the beginning. Weird dude, right? Like it seemed like James Pierce just rubs people the wrong way. Infamously, ran his 40 in a hoodie because he forgot his speed suit, in the room, and still ran really fast, obviously. But he's just kind of a nonchalant guy. Doesn't seem to take things too seriously, and a lot of teams took that, I think, as he doesn't love the game, he's not into it. The Falcons don't seem to think that. They seem to think he's just a little bit of a non-traditional sort of personality, a little bit introverted. Nothing wrong with that. He's not necessarily going to be your rah-rah guy. You don't need 50 of those on your team. In fact, you get too many of them and you got a problem. So sure. Pierce on the field, his trump card, his get off at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's elite. Some of the best you'll see coming out. And, like you said, this was a guy that was going top 5 in mock drafts prior to last season. And I think he got better this year. So I don't know why, I don't know if it's prospect fatigue. I don't know if it's the character, right? But I think the Falcons were happy and excited to take James Pierce at 15. When he was there at 26, they said, we can't pass up this opportunity. We got to go get him. And, I'm sure we'll spend some time talking about the trade up. I think the trade up is being portrayed quite negatively in the draft media as a whole. And I think everyone forgets that the Falcons needed another day 2 pick. They just had the second rounder. They didn't have a third rounder because of the Matt Judon trade. So in the process of trading into the first round, they acquired a third round pick. So they get that missing day 2 pick. They turn their second rounder into a first rounder and they get a third rounder they didn't have. And they end up drafting Xavier Watts, who's a total steal. I'm sure we'll spend some time on him. So I think the trade is being portrayed a little too negatively, given I think what the Falcons got value wise, and like you said, if it's a top 10 pick, obviously it's a disaster. But if it's not, if it's a pick in the 20s, the Falcons will actually come out ahead in trade value. So, we'll see how that plays out.
Love it, man. I mean, you said it on the head. We talked in depth, right, about James Pierce, but here in Knoxville, he was not a distraction. I mean, this guy showed up to work. I mean, there was some concerns that he would maybe sit because he wanted to prepare himself for this moment being drafted. He did get better this year. He is elite. He has all the things he wants. Is he a bit undersized? Yeah, but like he made it work. And I know when I see a football player, James Pierce is that, Jalen Walker is that, the Atlanta Falcons got better. And to me, it still wasn't their best pick. I mean, Xavier Watts, we saw him all over the field doing what he does. Jesse Bates, honestly, to me, outside of somebody else on this show, is one of the best safeties in the league.
Xavier McKinney.
Xavier McKinney is awesome. He is a great football player. I think Jesse Bates is right there. I think they are interchangeable. I think it's whatever you prefer. Getting a running mate like Xavier Watts to pair along with Jesse Bates, all good teams, if you notice, have great safeties. For example, the Baltimore Ravens did this exact model, taking Joseph's freaking superstar safety, Malachi Stark, right? Being able to take him and pair with Kyle Hamilton. Well, the same thing just happened in Atlanta, too, with someone who's a bit more rangy, can make the plays. I love what they did in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think that's a key part of what makes this trade work for Atlanta is the fact that, and they couldn't have known this at the time, obviously, but the fact that you're able to get a guy in Xavier Watts that I was happy to draft in the second round of mock drafts and was excited to see him there because he's a top 50 player on pretty much every board. I think the consensus had him as 48. PMF has him as 36 or something like that. So this is a fringe first rounder, early second round type of talent. That's the perfect running mate for what you want in Jesse Bates. To get him, obviously you end up having to give up another fifth for him in 2026, which is, a future pick is the equivalent of that would be a 2025 sixth, basically almost nothing on the trade chart, right? To make sure you secure this guy. I think that's what could make this whole thing work. Obviously James Pierce needs to pan out, but the fact that you're able to pick up a guy in Xavier Watts, who's probably going to be a day one starter for you, and just lift the ceiling of this entire secondary, it kind of makes it really covers up, I think, the prime issue with the trade, which is that, you had to trade, X, Y, and Z to just get one player. No. You traded 46 and a 2026 first for Xavier Watts and James Pierce Jr. You didn't trade 46 in a first for James Pierce. You got a third back. And I think that's what's getting forgotten. And, the Rams obviously get Terrence Ferguson with 46. We'll see how his career develops. But I think the Falcons have an excellent chance of coming out ahead in this trade, depending on obviously how the season goes. It could go very poorly. There's no doubt about the risk involved there. So
For sure. For
All
sure.
right, I want to push the rewind button for a second, Miggy, because we've been talking about, the Falcons, the pass rush, and obviously you're getting to Xavier Watts, which, watching in the college football playoff, that's really when I started sort of paying attention to Notre Dame. He played some incredible football. It was fun to watch him play that safety position. I agree. Great guy to pair with Jesse Bates, another great guy for Xavier Watts to learn from as well in Jesse Bates. So I'm excited about that. But you guys were talking about it. The pass rush was huge. Atlanta ranked 31st in pass rush win rate at 34% last year and 29th in total quarterback pressures with 230 last season. I like Jalen Walker, and I think Joseph can tell us a little bit more about him and how he might be able to fit because he's a big Georgia boy. But I want to spend a little bit more time examining James Pierce Jr. because I think y'all are crazy. And I'm surprised, Miggy, that you didn't say anything because you watched Tennessee all year. We talked about how James Pierce Jr. was continuously becoming a ghost on that football field.
Yeah.
To me, he did not have the same season he had a year ago where that made him potentially a number one overall pick in this past year's draft. So I am kind of, honestly, Kev, I'm a little skeptical about this fit for James Pierce Jr. I think he has the talent, but like you were alluding to, sort of the nonchalant attitude, I don't know if he's going to really ramp it up in the NFL. Now, I hope I'm wrong because I do want Miggy to be happy and I do want him to have a nice pass rush and you have a nice pass rush and have nice things as Falcons fans because y'all are my boys. But I am a little just personally skeptical about how James Pierce Jr. is going to fit. When I looked at him in the season that he had last year, and I get it, he was dealing with double teams sometimes, and that's why I kind of got lost in the shuffle. But, I think there have been great pass rushers in college football that have been able to overcome double teams and be able to still wreak havoc on games. And I just didn't really feel James Pierce Jr.'s presence a ton of times this past season. I think I would have liked to see him go somewhere that had maybe an already established pass rush or pass rusher and then be able to learn from him and maybe just kind of slide in, ease his way into the league. Now there's going to be a lot of pressure on him and Jalen Walker to go out there and perform right away because the rest of the pass rush, as we've alluded to, not great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I obviously James Pierce was going to have a really hard time following up that 2023 season, which was, electric. I mean, outstanding production, all that stuff. I think, you look at 2024, the sacks 8 instead of 13, that on its face looks, a little disappointing given I think people were expecting him to take another step this year. I think where he took a step was as a run defender, where he was just a little bit more consistent. I don't think he's ever going to be a high end run stopper at the NFL level, but the effort I think was better. The physicality was a little bit better. But you look at the total number of pressures, the sacks weren't necessarily there, but his, he had 43 hurries versus 28 in 2023. So it seems like the sack conversion rate was down, but the overall pressure rate was still extremely high. I mean, his 23% pass rush run rate, according to PFF, was I think second in all the FBS or close to it. And the run stop rate getting up to 10.1, that's obviously nice to see. I will obviously defer to people that watched every snap of Tennessee football, because that is not what I did. I definitely watched James Pierce cut-ups to scout him out. So, but to me, I think, you're looking at this guy as a high-end pass rush specialist for you, with the hope that maybe at the NFL level, you can put another 5-10 pounds on him, make him a little bit more palatable on early downs, just enough that he can be sort of a backside, weak side edge rusher. But I think in Atlanta, they just need pass rush. And I get the people that say like, well, you just drafted 2 pass rush specialists. Like, well, they had 0 before, so they're going to be fine. Like, yeah, no, trust me, that they're going to be very happy to just have 2 guys they can rotate on third down, and they'll figure out the run defense. They got some big boys still. Like, we got to get Zach Harrison playing edge rusher again and stop it with this whole interior defensive line fantasy that Jimmy Lake had for him. He's an edge rusher, so get him on one side to stuff the run, and we could get these 2 young guys out there rushing the passer. But I do get it with James Pierce, because I think he is one of those more polarizing guys in this class. So I think his draft rankings, were commiserate with that, where you saw a lot of guys that were like fringe top 10, and then people that had him more like late first. So it's I totally get it with that.
One thing that people forget, we talk about draft capital a lot. You're really getting 3 pass rushers that are brand new NFL rookies. Braylon Trice tore his ACL and didn't play a snap for the Atlanta Falcons, and was a 3rd round pick, and was basically Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year last year. You add him to the mix with Arbo Ebiketie, you add him with Rook. I mean, all these different what you have to me are pretty good, pass rushers. I just don't think they got home last year. You're going to see a completely overhauled pass rush for this Atlanta Falcons group, and I'm excited, because I think that the philosophy here is 2 things. It's sacks, right? But then also creating chaos, which is going to lead to turnovers to hand it back to your high-powered offense. If you noticed, there was only really, and it was an undrafted free agent move that I'm excited about. And we can talk about that in a second. But this is basically saying, hey, we know the problem is our defense. We know who we're up against. We need to go stop it. And that's what the front office for the Atlanta Falcons did. Now, Coach Raheem Morris has to cash in that check. Simple as that.
Yeah. No, I think the one thing to watch that wasn't a draft addition is defensive line coach Nate Ollie, who came over from the Texans. And the Falcons last year had Jay Rogers as their D-line coach. My co-host on Dirty Birds and Brews at Falcoholic Live was like, why are they hiring this guy? He washed out of the Chargers after having the worst run defense in the league for about 3 years. He hasn't really done anything. Why are we hiring this guy? I would ask the same question about Jimmy Lake, and it's clearly they decided to move on for both of those guys. Nate Ollie is a different story. This is a guy that had a hand in Will Anderson. Danielle Hunter had one of his best years last year with Nate Ollie overseeing that continued development. He's had a track record consistently of developing interior and edge rush talent, pass rushers in particular. And I think that's an underrated part of this whole offseason is not only did they say we have to get more of it, we have to get more talent, we also need to get better at developing that talent. And that's what they're banking on is we got to get Jalen Walker up to NFL speed, figure out a role for him and get him on the field quickly. We got to get James Pierce Jr. going and motivated quickly. We have to take advantage of the guys we drafted last year that didn't play three of them. Braylon Trice at edge, and then Rukaroro, who didn't play much, and Brandon Dollars, who played like a handful of snaps all year. Now they got a coach, I think, and a philosophy in here that's going to allow those guys to play, and hopefully will actually develop them. So I think that's critical to this whole thing working, is those guys from last year have to pan out too.
Kev, I'm so appreciative of you showing love to Coach Nate Ollie, because I actually went to school while Nate was a GA at Tennessee. So I saw him up close and personal develop at that time the sack leader who broke Reggie White's record, Mr. Derek Barnett, and saw him in college. I saw the way he worked. He's a very cool guy. And it's followed him right in his career, because he's been able to go to Philadelphia, and he, got Brandon Graham as well as Fletcher Cox to be able to have Pro Bowl seasons when that D-line was going crazy, and kind of like the beginning of what we see now is that defense up in Philadelphia. I mean, I can't say enough good about him, and I think that's going to be an awesome addition to the Atlanta Falcons defensive room. So excited for what's to come. I know, we look at linebacker. I think there's still one or two pieces left for this defensive unit to make. I think that the Jalen Ramsey sweepstakes is not over by any means. It's not over. I think AJ Terrell still needs a running mate. I thought that they would try and convert Jalen Ramsey almost to a safety, similar to like Charles Woodson on the back half of his career. And Champ didn't convert, but Rod Woodson, like you see what these guys did, right? They are corners, they're elite, but once you turn 30, I mean, them legs ain't as, quick. You're not as able to keep up with these young men, these Marvin Harrison Juniors and these Brian Thomas Juniors. Like it's hard. So I could see us getting in on that as well.
Yeah, I think Ramsey's interesting. I sort of think that they're going to wait that out and just wait for the Dolphins to cut him at this point. I think the fact that they were able to get multiple secondary pieces that I think they were not thinking they were going to get. I think they were hoping, like, it's kind of funny because I think the whole draft basically shifted up around from what they were expecting, right? Like they were expecting Walker to be gone. He's there at 15. We got to take him. All right. Then James Pierce lingers into the 20s. They're like, all right, I guess we'll trade back up for him. Then they were planning, according to Ulbrich, to take Xavier Watts at 46. They don't have that pick anymore, so they got to wait. They waited out a little bit, a lot, to 96, and they're like, all right, well, we got to get him. They get him at 96, and I think they were maybe planning on taking Billy Bowman, who was their fourth rounder, at 90 with their third round pick. So they get him in the fourth round. So I think they ended up getting a couple more pieces in the secondary than they thought. But I really liked the instant answer to, well, it looks like you got another safety already. So what are we doing with Billy Bowman? Like, oh no, he's going to be our slot. Yeah, he's our slot guy. I love the conviction, because I felt like last year, one of the things that felt so wishy-washy was how comfortable they were with everything. And it's like, I don't want you to be comfortable. I want you to have conviction. Tell me what he's going to do. Like, we don't need to play games with this. Tell me what he's going to do. This isn't Fort Knox. This ain't a secret. Like, is he playing? Is he playing slot or is he playing outside? Just tell me.
Amen.
Like it's like, oh yeah, he's playing slot. Okay, great. I love it. Yeah, I love it. And Billy Bowman's thing is he's a short, and a small safety. You put him in the slot, he ain't so short or small anymore. So it's like, okay, wow, why didn't I think of this? I mean, I think Jeff Ulbrich had a huge influence on this draft. You could tell I think they had him sort of like Eric Andre outside the draft room, like trying to get in, and they're like, oh, they showed the video and like, you could come in, they open the door, he comes in, he's all excited, but it seems like he had a big influence on this draft and really clearly communicated what he wanted, and they went out and got it. And it's exciting stuff. I really like how this is coming together.
All right. My last question for you, Kev, is pertaining to the roster as it sits right now. And I want to just ask you quickly, I know there's been a lot of talk amongst the media and the NFL world about what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins. And I know it's not the hottest story in the world. I saw something, recently that says, hey, maybe you should go to the Saints, but who knows what's happening with their quarterback room. What do you feel like is going to end up happening with Kirk Cousins?
Yeah. At this point, they're going to hold him until an offer comes in. And, we'll see when that is. Most likely training camp, preseason. As soon as we get quarterback injuries is probably when that's going to happen. There's always a chance that someone has a deal in principle for him that executes after June 1st, because the Falcons can eat a lot more of the contract after June 1st without incurring a cap charge. At this point, they can't really eat much of it. Maybe a couple million, 5 million, I think is what they could restructure and still stay like neutral against the cap. That's probably not moving the needle for anyone. But after June 1st, they could eat as much as they want, basically, of his salary. I don't know why they would be inclined to do that unless the draft pick was outstanding. A day 2 pick maybe would convince me to eat 20 million, but they're just going to wait, and as much as we hear about, oh, Kirk is a locker room problem, he's this, he's that, he showed up for like the first voluntary workouts. He's there working out. Like it's all overblown. That's Kirk's agent pushing that. Like Kirk himself, he's going to show up, he's going to work, he's going to keep his mouth shut, he's going to help Penix because that's what he does. Like he can't. He's just like, when he's out of the building, he talks and, he's problematic. When he's in the building, he's all business, and obviously we all wish that he had maybe been a little more forthcoming with that injury, but can you blame the guy? I mean, he might've thought this was his last chance to start. And that if he saw Penix practicing every day, right? He knows if he leaves the field, he ain't coming back. So, while obviously it hurt the team in a big way, from his perspective, I mean, I get it. I don't agree with it. I get it. So at this point, I think he knows the Falcons are trying to trade him. They're trying to get him a starting job somewhere. They're going to do their best, but they also can't take nothing for him. They're paying him. Like they're paying him $27.5 million in salary plus signing bonus. So they can't just cut him. They didn't, thankfully. So if somebody wants him, they're going to have to come for him. And I think both sides are inclined to make this work when the time comes, but probably going to be a little bit of a wait until we see that happen.
Kev, I love what you said there. And my thought process here is, fellas, this is the best insurance that money can buy. It's like having State Farm, Allstate, or Geico. Being able to have what I think is a quarterback. Kirk Cousins was hurt. Do y'all not remember Kirktober and how dynamic this man had the city of Atlanta?
Yeah, against Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
that game was spicy. Yeah,
that same Tampa Bay team was absolutely making noise, right, in the playoffs. Like when I tell you, Tampa Bay is going to be a threat this year, by the way, but that's another topic. I am terrified of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll just go out and flat out say it. Like they are loaded, but Cousins can still ball. I just think Michael Penix takes your football team ceiling to the next level because he can make throws that I only think 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the league can make right now. I think he's going to be in that echelon. And I think that you're forced to play him. And that move a year ago, whenever I was screaming in Hotel Clemens about how mad I was taking Penix,
I was right there calming you down.
That decision was so smart because when you're there in the top 10, that is quarterback time. You have to take one. And you see teams making reaches, and I think that we did what we had to do as an organization, but I'm excited to see what is going to happen this year, and specifically Kirk Cousins. I think he sits. And let's not forget, Michael Penix has torn his ATL multiple times, has had injury after injury in his time at Indiana, as well as he was nicked up in Washington even prior to his incredible season. So when I think about it, I think that Michael Penix is going to be a superstar, but it doesn't help to have an insurance policy with Kirk Cousins. And the money's already spent. You might as well get something.
You already paid him. Might as well, like if you're not coming with a pick, like I'm not giving him away. Like, it's all overblown that he's some locker room problem. He's not, so it doesn't behoove Cousins to be a problem. It behooves him to help be a solution so he can get off this team, which is what we all want, right? We all want him to be able to start, and we want us to get some kind of compensation and financial relief. And yeah, like you said, everybody panned the pick. There's plenty of reports in draft grades, which as someone who does like 15 mock drafts, I know how dumb it all is, right? It's all about entertainment, not dunking on anybody, but people saying it's clear the Falcons have no plan. Of course they have a plan. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it, but people said they had no plan last year. They clearly had a plan. The plan was fix quarterback. And yeah, did both moves work? No, but that's why they made 2 moves, because how many times do you draft a quarterback? It doesn't work out. How many times do you sign a quarterback? He gets hurt. They did 2 moves and they fixed it. They found a solution. This is the same thing this year. We got to fix the pass rush. That's the plan this year. We take 2 swings at it, fix the pass rush. Hopefully both of them work out. If one works out, we're probably happy. If you found a double-digit sack guy that you haven't had since John Abraham or 1 year of Vic Beasley, shout out. Like it's worth it. It's worth it. So, we'll see. Hopefully everything goes swimmingly, but to say they have no plan is incorrect. It's a bold plan. And is it a risky as hell plan? Yes, but this team was boring before the draft, right? Nobody was talking about the Falcons. This team was boring as hell. They did nothing in free agency. I did a whole show about it. This team hasn't done enough. You're not even interesting, right? You got Michael Penix and the offense, and the defense looks like a crater. And after this draft, everyone's talking about him and saying, "Oh, well, what are they doing? They're trading away their future." What future, man? Like this team had no energy, and now you're mad that they took 2 swings at the pass rush, that they got aggressive. Come on, miss me with that. Like this team had to do this. They had to make these aggressive moves. They had to get the fans back in. And guess what? Every Falcons fan you talk to is happy. The only people that aren't happy are national media types, which, shout out to you guys. Like, no, not really throwing stones, but I'm just saying, in this dumb draft grades exercise, I think that's the wrong take. So
come on, Kev.
Yeah, that's
come
not
on, Kev.
We're regional. We're regional.
Come on, Kev.
Yeah. Not you. You're regional. Yeah.
National
media
we're
types,
happy. We're happy for the most part. Again, I need to see the James Pierce Jr. thing, but
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, Kev, we got to let you roll here. We appreciate your time. You got one, Jay?
Just one, real quick, because we save them for the end of the draft, Kevin, because sometimes they don't work out. But undrafted free agents, sometimes they're huge. And I wanted to talk about one real quick because you brought up Billy Bowman. You brought him up as a smaller body, somebody that could probably play nickel, play that slot. The Falcons as a UDFA also signed Kobe Bryant out of Kansas, who was a 3-time All Big 12 corner, had 13 interceptions across his career. Like he's in that same body type, 6 foot, around 180. Billy Bowman's a little bit heavier, but he's like a true 5'10", something like that. Yeah. What are your thoughts on somebody like that? Getting that guy that's projected, I think he was like a high second round pick, then goes undrafted, and the Falcons are just like, oh, okay, we didn't draft a true corner. Kobe's right here. We saw him produce at Kansas for 3 seasons. Like, we can get this guy on an undrafted free agent deal, and we can see if he works out versus Billy Bowman. We can put him right there. That's what, like, he seems versatile. We've seen him do it on tape, and you get somebody that was projected high as an undrafted free agent deal. What are your thoughts on Kobe Bryant?
Yeah, I think he's got a great shot at the roster. I mean, he was a 4th rounder for me. I thought, the tape is awesome. Great Shrine Bowl. But he's light, and I think people were terrified of Emmanuel Forbes after seeing that. Obviously Bryant's not that light, but also Forbes shouldn't have gone in the 1st round. That was ridiculous. I think you could take Kobe Bryant in the 4th round. That's fine. But I sort of think Bryant's more of a factor outside. A guy that's probably going to have to put on 5 to 10 to really stick. And when I say 5 to 10 for like James Pierce, who's 250, it's a little bit of an easier proposition than a 6 foot corner who's 175, right? That's a totally different story. So it might take him a year to get up to that playing weight without sacrificing. But I absolutely think that he's someone who has a great shot at the roster because he's unlikely to survive the practice squad. And when you're that high profile, it really helps your roster chances because you're basically a draft pick. Like you're likely to get poached, much more likely to make the team. And I mean, I think he can play special teams. I think he's angry. And I love that. I love to be the team that gives a ticket to the guy that's pissed off. So he can go make your rivals look silly, make everyone that passed on him look silly. I think he's got a great shot at the roster for sure.
Good stuff, Jay. Appreciate that question. Glad we were able to slip it in. Kev, appreciate the time as always. Go follow him on Twitter at Falcoholic. Kevin, he is the Falcons reporter for the Falcoholic. Get all of his great content up there, and also host and producer for Falcoholic Live on the Believe Network. Kev, good to talk to you. Good to see your face finally. We've only done radio hits, so I've never gotten a chance to see you live here. So it's been fun getting a chance to chop it up with about the Falcons with you, my man.
Absolutely, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.